How the war ends is the following. Every single hostage is released, all 48, including those that are deceased. Hamas no longer exists as an armed group that's threatening Israel. That's how the war ends. So the question is, how do we achieve it? And ideally, in a perfect world, you would achieve it through a diplomatic agreement.
All right, time to bring in our panel. We have Fox News contributor Ben Domenech, host of the Big Ben podcast, Real Clear Politics White House correspondent Phil Wegman, and Fox News senior political analyst Juan Williams. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here on this fabulous Friday. Ben, what do you make of this claim from Hamas that they have agreed to release the hostages, but really it seems like all they're agreeing to is to now negotiate 2 years into the negotiation?
Jillian, I think we both know, and I think everyone on this set knows that at this point you can't take Hamas's word on any of this at face value. We should view it in dubious terms until they actually live up to anything that they commit to. I do think that the president sent about as strong a message as I've seen him send today, and he seems to be coming. I think he's increasingly vociferous about his frustration with this situation, that he believes that there has been a clear path to ending this, and Hamas has not been living up to their various inclinations toward trying to find some solution. And I think he's fed up with it. He's done with this situation. He wants to move on. He has enough on his plate as it is.
Juan, the best case scenario here, right, is Hamas means what it is saying. It's going to release the hostages. That is one point in this 20-point plan. So even if they do that, right, they're going to release, we think, 20 living people, about 25 or so corpses, sadly, at this moment. And in exchange, now Israel is going to release hundreds of convicted Hamas terrorists and withdraw from Gaza. Seems stacked.
Not if you consider, I think it's more than 60,000 Palestinians have died. And clearly, the destruction in Gaza has been horrific. But I think that, I think what Ben said's right. You can't trust much of what Hamas says in these negotiations. But to me, the power dynamic here in this moment is President Trump emphatically stating that Israel has to stop bombing, stop its military action, and they have an ongoing assault right now on Gaza City. So they've got to stop immediately in President Trump's mind. And if they don't stop, then what course does he take in terms of sanctioning the Israeli prime minister? It's a very interesting power dynamic in several directions, not only the U.S. and Israel, and of course Hamas and Israel, but then also the Arab nations that have endorsed President Trump's deal.
So, Phil, President Trump said to Hamas, you got to agree to all 20 points, take them or leave them by Sunday at 6 o'clock. It is now Friday after 6 o'clock, so they have less than 48 hours, and they have come forth and said, we agree to 1 point. Sounds like maybe it's just a ploy to get more time.
And certainly Israel doubts that Hamas is ready for lasting peace, as President Trump said in that statement. I think that this is a White House that is willing to take what they can get when they can get it. Hamas has said that they're ready to return those hostages and negotiate on the other points. Trump is ready to take them at their initial word here, begin that process. I think that Juan's right. The significant headline here is that for the first time, Trump is leaning on Netanyahu, saying, stop the fighting. And to your point also about the power dynamic, now he has a lot of these other Arab nations, Egypt and Qatar, also leaning on Hamas, also coming to the negotiation table to finally bring this thing to an end.
Want to switch gears here because we are now 3 days into the shutdown with no real end in sight, especially after this afternoon's series of votes. Ben, take a look at this from NBC News. Government shutdown delays key monthly jobs report at a pivotal moment for the U.S. economy. Like many other federal offices, the Bureau of Labor Statistics temporarily closed because of the ongoing shutdown. Now the Fed could be forced to make another decision on rates this month without the benefit of key federal data. I mean, this is all sounds not great, but it has real world impact far beyond that for Americans' wallets.
It does, but I also think that this is a situation that is going to find some pretty speedy resolution. You have a situation where by the 15th, everyone knows the dynamic here, that once you start getting up to the point where paychecks are going out to people who are the most sympathetic, that there's going to be a need to come to the table. And I think that you already saw some movement on the part of some senators that is toward trying to find something here. But the decision by the House, I think, and by Speaker Mike Johnson has been, we're not coming back. And I don't think that they feel like they are going to be penalized in any way by their constituents for holding the line on this. In fact, I think that they believe that the Democrats have not been able to connect in the kind of messaging that they had hoped for on the healthcare front, that they have an easy response for it when it comes to the illegal immigration issue, which they're comfortable fighting on. And I think that this ultimately could end up being something where Democrats view this as unsatisfying in terms of the outcome of whatever we actually see at the end.
It is also conceivable, Juan, that Speaker of the House doesn't get blamed, but the White House ends up taking a lot of heat for this.
That's possible. I mean,
in terms of health care benefits.
Yeah, but the healthcare thing is very tricky because clearly most Americans want an extension of these Obamacare ACA subsidies, and the White House doesn't, and I think much of their base doesn't. So the question is, how far are you willing to go? The counter argument coming from the Democrats is that you have the White House, the House, the Senate under Republican control, and you can't keep the government open. And I think that is a pretty simple argument and has some attractiveness to it. The difficulty, I think, is that also that if you think of it from the White House point of view, as you mentioned, Jillian, they don't want any political fallout. And they see now, I think, if you look at the morning polls, not only New York Times, but Washington Post and elsewhere, that the blame is shifting towards them, and I think they don't like it.
Phil, a lot of Americans who are not deep in the political weeds here in Washington look at this and say, well, what is this all for? What are you guys doing? You can't even, cut the checks.
Mm-hmm. And I think the White House right now is confident in their approach to this because they know that Democrats could make this a fight over Obamacare subsidies tomorrow. In fact, Vice President Vance told me this week that they were open to negotiation on this point. But instead, things get muddled where you have Republicans point to the provision in the Democratic funding proposal, which would fund health care for some of these individuals who were paroled during the previous administration that Republicans are in the process of deporting and call illegal immigrants. But right now, Democrats, I think, are trying to define this fight as it happens. It's incredibly difficult, and they may end up finding themselves in a situation not unlike Republicans were when the Tea Party shut down the government in 2013.
All right, stick with us, because coming up next, we got the Friday lightning round and then notable quotables.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.